Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Kim here, and today is an episode of Thrifty Canucks with a twist. You know I like to do these twisty things because we're going to make something with what we've thrifted today. So I have been wanting to show you this for a while, but I had kind of forgot about it, and then I was thrifting the last time, or a couple times ago actually, and I found these bamboo tile placemats. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. But then I got that cold and then I got a little bit backed up. So we're doing it today. So these placemats they're actually very beautiful placemats. And the tiles are nice and smooth. They feel good. And you see them in the thrift shops. They're not cheap. Because to buy these brand new, you're looking anywhere from $5 to about $12 each, depending on where you're buying them. So I have no problem paying $5 for one of these placemats. If I see them for $1 or $2, it's like it just jumps right into my cart because there's a lot of mileage here. And what I do with bamboo tiles is I turn them into charms, charm dangle tassels to be exact. And I'll show you some in a second. And again, they are expensive to buy brand new, but if you can find them for $5, I wouldn't hesitate because this one has 130 tiles on this one sheet. And I think this brown one, I didn't realize they came in different sizes. I think this one has about 140 something. I didn't do the exact math. But the reason they are so expensive is well, I'll show you how the holes are drilled in them afterwards. But you know, they're just really nice quality placemats. And why do they end up in the thrift shops? Because people don't like cleaning them. Because when you use these placemats and when you find them in the thrift shop, you're going to have to do some cleaning. Food falls in between. Food gets caught in the ties that tie them together. It becomes kind of disgusting. And sometimes when you find them, they are pretty disgusting. But they do clean up with some baby wipes or just, rinsing them quite quickly in some dish soap. I wouldn't go too much into the dish soap or get them too wet because they are bamboo. And even though they've got a nice finish on the outside, where the holes are drilled, you're exposing plain wood that isn't varnished. So it could cause these to warp or expand or contract a little bit. So I would just recommend wiping them clean as opposed to actually washing them. But that is the reason why these things show up in the thrift shops. It's not a regular placemat that just anybody buys. It's, like I said, it's more of a quality placemat. So once they realize how hard it is to clean them, out they go. So when you find them, you want to grab them. And even if you've got 2 or 3 of these, you want to grab them anyway, because they're getting a little more scarce because as fashions change, so does people's decor, and we don't see these things anymore. And I've gone online to several places, and you can find them, but they're expensive, and you're buying them usually brand new. In fact, years ago when I was making, when they were a little bit more popular and I was making a lot of stuff with these, I used to have a gal from the States who would order them at 500 pieces at a time from me. So it was kind of a lucrative business on the side because she couldn't find them. They were very scarce where she was, and she was making jewelry with them. So lots of different ideas that you can use to play with these. So we're going to start out, but I'm going to show you how to take one of these apart. It's not that it's hard, but there is a method. And then we're going to play around and make some tassels with them, just so you can see how to use them. So usually they have a rubber end to them, and this rubber piece is quite flexible, and it has holes in it that they back and forth weave a plastic cord through. So I start at either end, it doesn't matter which one, and I snip the threads, Usually it's the second one I do. Yeah, that's right, because I do lose a little bit on the beginning. So I snipped the plastic threads. Through the first row. And that's because there aren't any knots at that point. So the tiles just fall off. And then you're left with these pieces that have this plastic thread going through it that has knots in it. I'm just going to take these out really quickly because I don't want this to end up on the floor. Now, you know I like to use everything. And there's no exception to these placemats, in that this has all of those holes in it. Now you probably can't see it that well. Well, maybe you can if I get close enough there. I use these when I want to dangle something in a window. I use this to, I put a hook at one end. Do I have a bulb pin here somewhere? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Sorry, you just have to get a bulb pin. Didn't think about that. So if I want to hang something from my window, for example, I would use just a bulb pin or a hook or whatever, you know, you can make some wire or something and close it up. And this just makes it easy now to hook this onto something. And then I have this long piece of plastic with holes in it, and I can cut it at different lengths if I want something just to hang down a little ways and then hang down. If I want to hang dangles, or I don't know if you guys have seen my globes in my living room. I hung these on the ceiling on a hook, and then I decided what lengths I wanted my globes to be. So that's how long this plastic stayed, or how long I kept it. So I would just put these aside somewhere and remind yourself every once in a while that you have them, because they come free with every placemat. They do come dirty. So you may have to wipe them down a little bit, but they're just great little extenders, and you will find other uses for these. There's a very soft, flexible plastic. So you could make sort of wraps for your journals if you give it some thought. And because there's holes here, you can dangle things from that. Just keep it in mind. You know, maybe at first you're going to say, oh, I don't have a use for that. And then as soon as you discard them, you'll go, oh, I could have used that. So they don't take up a lot of room. And, you know, let's keep things from the landfill at least one more life before you actually discard them. And I use these for extending all kinds of things. It's just that, you know, right now while I'm talking to you, of course, it's not coming to mind what I would use it for. But that's the first thing I do is I salvage those. So once you've cut the first row, you can see that the beads just fall off. So I recommend that you have some kind of a tray to catch them into. And I'm just going to open the one. I'm not going to open both of these, because there are 130 beads here, and there's no way I'm going to do 130 of these before the day is up. So again, I'm just taking off this extender piece. There's a few little straggler pieces of plastic, and I just keep going and taking them off and keeping the extenders, and running out of room. But you can see how quickly they come apart. And this one I had wiped down, so it is ready to use. And you may think that's odd, but the first time you get one from a thrift shop that's in the condition I've seen them in, you'll go, ew. But just remember, a little bit of wiping down with some cleaner of some kind, and, you know, a baby wipe, and they will be very nice to work with. And yes, you have to watch the whole process, because if I'm taking it apart, it's got to go somewhere, and it has to be done with when I'm finished. And yeah, I just found, this was the first one I found here in New Brunswick, but I do have these in stock. And I do, for the most part, keep them intact until I'm ready to use them. And yeah, they're not easy to find online. I've seen some square ones, but they're smaller. And now I think they are manageable enough that I can probably just push the whole thing into this tray. Now, if you notice, I'm holding on to these plastic threads because, like I said, I don't like to waste anything. And so when you get to the other end of the placemat, sometimes this is where the knots are. I think I cut off the knots totally by accident. But I like to grab these these plastic pieces. And if you do jewelry in any kind that you use these plastic cords, you know how expensive this can be. And because they go the whole length of the placemat, and then they're doubled up on the other end, like they're folded. This was probably one continuous zigzag back and forth through the whole placemat. But when you cut them, you end up with these pieces that are, you know, pretty long. I don't know, it's about maybe 15 inches times 2, so they're about 30 inches. So these are great to keep to use for making jewelry or any other thing where you might need sort of a fishing line type of stuff. And I just gather them up. You can fold them in half and put an elastic around them, or you can tie them in a knot, which is what I'm doing right now. I like a slip knot. And then, you know, stick this in a drawer somewhere where you've got it handy. And when you need a wire, there's your wire. Plastic wire. So you've got that. You've got these extenders, which, again, it's something that you know, may not have a reason to use it just yet, but eventually you will. So I would put those away as well, all together, and then you know that you have them. And it's always good to have these things together to remind yourself, one, where you got them from, and two, that you have to come up with uses for them. I'm just taking the bulb pin off because I don't want to keep it with those. So then I just have a spot where I put all of this together in one spot, and I use them as I go along, and then I just keep adding more colors if I want colors, although by the time we're done, you don't really see the color much, if at all. So I'm going to put this one aside. They fold up really nicely too, so they're great to store in a smaller amount. Excuse me, and I'm just going to take a handful of these out. I don't even think we'll get that many done. But yeah, there's over 130 in here, or at least 130. So if you get a lot of beads for your mileage, just put them in a jar or somewhere where you can see them, so that you're reminded to use them. And now comes the fun part, is turning these into charms. Now, the tile has holes on either side. You know, that the wire goes through, and this is the perfect opportunity to make a tassel. So I have a couple tassels here that I can show you. Now this is a boho tassel. So I've decorated the whole tile. You can't even see it anymore, but I do have a hook going through the top, which is the one side of the bead, to make a hanger, or, you know, something to tie it on to a project. Or even just to have the hook there and hook it onto a project with a bulb pin, you know, that type of thing. And then it has another hook on the bottom, which you can't really see because I've got the tassel covering it, which is coming out of the bottom end. So then what you need to do is you need to have a loop at the top and a loop at the bottom. And so the loop at the bottom is where I've tied on this tassel. You could tie on a beaded dangle or a charm. And then at the top, like I said, you can have the wire loop up there that you hook on with a ball pin or a hook or something to hang it from, or a tie if you want to use it to tie onto something. So that's one style there that I've made with the boho look. I have lots of these, but they're in a box right now. Because I sell these in my on my coffee shop or on my website. One of the two has them. So now this one I've wrapped in some lace, and then I used some of the same fibers I wrapped around here, and then I added some little flowers. I have a tutorial where I teach you how to make these little flowers. Again, I've put a hook on the top to tie the ribbon, and then I have a ball pin on the end. And on the bottom, I have just some fibers that I have dangling from here, and it could be beads. And in this case, there was a piece of lace, so I have a dangle hanging from the lace with a bead on the end, and another little chain and some charms dangling from that as well. So once you start making these, the sky is the limit as to how you can decorate them. So this is just to give you a couple of ideas of what they're going to look like finished. So we need a hook on the top and on the bottom. And there are at least 3 different ways that we can do this. If you wanted to, you could weave a ribbon through there or a fiber through there on a needle and thread. But that's painful. In my mind, that's painful. And so I often use a paper clip. Now, when you use a paper clip, you get 3 loops out of a paper clip. And I've shown you this with corks. So the first thing I do is I cut off the paper clip right at the base of the small paper clip. I just cut it across. So I'll just show you by taking my wire cutters. You do need a good pair of wire cutters. And I cut this one off. And so it's sitting like this. That's what I cut off, if you can see it. And that gives me 2 on that side. So I end up with 3. However, they are all different sizes because you've just, the loops are different sizes because of how the paper clip works. So I usually end up cutting 2 paper clips so I can do the same thing twice and have the same size loops. So I'm just going to grab a second paper clip. Now you see where the 2 paper clips meet, and there's like the 2 ends. So that's the part I cut off. Okay, so now I can kind of match them up. I think that goes that way. No, yeah, that goes this way, and this way. So you'll see I have 2 sets of 3 paper clips. So I have enough to do 3 of these bamboo tiles because you need 1 on either end. Now, you don't need them this long because they're going to go all the way inside. But I do leave them fairly long anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But you do need to have a little bit of glue to glue this in, because if you have a lot of weight, that's just going to slide out. You can see that right now. It's just going to come right out. And you don't really want a big glob of glue at the top here because it interferes with the look of your tassel. So you need to use something that is not so noticeable. So you could either put some E6000 or goop glue on the ends and stick it in. It's messy. Yes, it's very messy. But you can also use some super glue, and that you have to be careful with because it is it works very well. And it loves to stick fingers and everything else to it, which is what I've got here. I'm gonna now, if I have any open? Yeah, I do. The other one's open. And not my most favorite stuff to work with, but I do use it. And I just need a little piece of paper to make sure I have glue in it. Okay, I think this one's hardened. Oh no, there it is. Okay. So I put a little, it's probably best to put it right on the paper clip. A little bit of glue on each tip of the paper clip. And you do have to be careful because you know what this stuff is. It's like crazy glue, right? And usually I take a pair of pliers so that if it sticks to the pliers, not to my fingers. And that should be enough to hold it in place. Now you do have to let it set. So we can do the other side, just making sure you don't touch the paper clip because, like I said, it's super glue. And once you glue your fingers, it's a pain to get it off. And it's horrible on fingernails. Oh my goodness, it's horrible on fingernails. Okay, so I've got a little bit of glue on the ends there. And taking a pair of needle nose pliers, I'm just holding on to the two ends. And being careful not to touch the other side too. And this is where you want them to not be quite so long. Okay, slowly going in. Yeah, this is where you would want to definitely cut them. But because it's going to be covered with a tassel and it's going to be covered with a hanger, I'm really not too worried if the other end shows. But that's the method that I will use in a pinch. I use this method for doing corks as well. But it's, you know, it's finicky, and you can stick your fingers together, and not my favorite method at all. So I'm going to put that away because there's no point in torturing ourselves to do this. And get this glue out of my way. Okay, so I have two more here that I can do, but I will do them off camera. That's the paper clip method. Now, you may have E6000 that you can glue in there. You can cut this shorter so it's not quite as long as this, and use the E6000. The only thing with E6000 or Goop is that you have to wait. You know, this should be dry within a few minutes, but yeah, I'm not going to work with this one till tomorrow. So my third method is to use wire. And this is 20 gauge jewelry wire. You can get this at your, you know, your local craft store that sells jewelry and jewelry parts. It's very inexpensive. And the thing is if you weave it through on, I'm just going to do one. If you weave it through, it takes a little bit of maneuvering. And it eventually comes through the other side. And then same with that one. So it's like a bobby pin, if you know what a bobby pin is, right? So if you weave it through like this, you have this beautiful finished little hook, and you can decide how long to keep it, right? But then you got these two little legs sticking down. I mean, you could twist it into a finished end, but it looks kind of ugly. And you'd have to make sure that you put a tassel here and that you really tighten this up so you can't see it. And it's still there and it's still ugly. So what I like to do, and this is the easiest way for me, is once I have the one set going on this side, I take another wire and I don't know, I don't measure, I just do it. You know, you can measure if you like. But I take a second wire and I feed it from the open side up again, so that you have a loop on both ends. And it is wide enough to get them on both going through both, or both wires going through the same hole. And I just slowly work it until I have another loop at that end. And then you can pull the little legs, is what I'm calling them, until they're tight. But you don't want to make them too tight, because you do want to be able to weave some cords in there. And you've got these 4 legs sticking out of there. So then what I do is I take another pair of pliers. Oh, my needle nose ones. So I take my needle nose pliers, or round nose pliers, and I start to curl this end into this funky looking curlicue thing with a hole in it. And I just kind of leave it up there for now. Okay, you can see it there. And then I do the same thing. And they don't have to match. They don't have to be perfectly balanced in how they look and their size, because we're going to do different things with those. So this is what it looks like now. And then doing the same thing on the bottom side. You can coil them, you can make them quite funky. Until you have all 4 of these done. Oop. And again, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. But this allows you to put this wire through, have a loop on both ends for catching your tassel and for catching a hanger. And you don't have sharp edges. No glue required, no sticking your fingers together. And it has a nice finished look to it. Now, the wire is not going anywhere, because the wire that's up here, these are the feet down here. And so even if I pulled on this a little bit, just to adjust it and give me a little bit more length on the loop, those feet aren't going anywhere. And then same with on this side, if I wanted to pull this loop down and make it a little bit bigger, these feet aren't going anywhere. So this also gives you opportunity to dangle other charms. It's pleasing to look at. It looks kind of funky. And so you can add charms or beads or other little dangly things, or you can later on incorporate this into your design, which I can show you later. Now, I think these ones were done with paper clips, but I find that this is the fastest. If I'm going to sit and watch a video, for example, I will wire a whole bunch of these and get them ready to go, and then they just sit until I want to use them. So how do we decorate them? Well, it just so happens I need some pink ones. So I'm going to leave this one for tomorrow. And it's not that I don't like doing them this way. I just don't like the gluing. So it's everybody's different, but this is the method I favor. I have silver wire, gold wire, copper colored. So I use any kind of wire I have. So I want to decorate them, and I have my hot glue gun handy in the corner here. You can't really see it, but it's here. And I have some fabric because I need 3 dangles for those pink journals that I'm working on. I've got some fabric, some lace, and some bits and pieces here. Some tulle. I'm going to start with this pink fabric. So I'm just going to cut a strip. You don't need much, that's for sure, and I don't worry about it being perfect in size. It's just approximate. You can wrap it, you can treat it like a boho bead. Now I saw some of this tulle here. I'm going to use some of that tulle just off of this ribbon. I hope you can see what I'm cutting off here. Now I don't know if I have a little, oh yeah, I've got some little doodads here. So taking my bead that has the decorations on it, this is actually too wide. I'm going to cut it in half. So this is a great way to use up your scrap fabrics. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the tile. Now you don't have to go right to the top because your bead is going to be finished on the ends. You're not going to see much of those brown ends, but I'm just putting the fabric into the glue, and I'm just going to wrap it around and kind of stagger it as I go along. There, you can make these so thick and layered. You know, I'm now that I'm down at the bottom, I'm just going to hold this ribbon aside a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of glue just to catch it so it doesn't unravel on me. And then I'm going to make my way back up the other way until I run out of fabric. And then just gluing that down. Now I'm going to take the netting and do the same thing. I'm going to put a little bit of glue where I just left off. Be careful with the netting because the glue is hot. You can do this with your tacky glues and your regular glues. So I'm just wrapping some netting around here. It just takes a little longer. And so this just is one more layer that I'm adding on top of the pink. I know some of you are going to make some of these right away as soon as you find the beads. Now I will be selling the beads in my coffee shop once I get everything turned over there. And I will probably sell a package of 20 for $1 because I'm not doing it to make the money. I'm just trying to recover my expenses. So if you do want to buy some from me, let me know. Like I said, I used to have somebody, if she saw me, she'd probably be calling me. So I've just added some tulle on there. And I've got some lace here. Let's see, I'm going to use this lace, I think, on top. I'm not even going to go all the way around the bead. I'm just going to go this way. And I want 2 of them so that in case the bead turns around, measure and cut a second one. So I'm not even wrapping it around because then it's going to look like a big bandage to me. So I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue down the center and laying the lace on top. A little bit of hot glue down the back. And just carefully laying the lace on top. And I see I've got a little bit of netting sticking up there. I'm just going to catch it with my glue. Now you do have to be careful because, like I said, the netting is open, and so I put my fingers into it, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'm so used to it now, it doesn't even bother me to catch my fingers on it. And then this was totally an accident. I think this was cut off from something else I did not too long ago. Yes, and I'm just going to glue that on the front. These are just plastic. You know, they come on a roll of a whole bunch of these beads. And so I'm just going to drizzle again a little bit of glue down the center. And lay this into the glue. You can use your other white glues or Fabri-Tac or whatever you have. But look at that. Isn't that pretty? And because it's going to be visible on both sides, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so there is my fancy bead with the little curlicues and the hook on either end. So somewhere in this pile, I do have some different ribbons. Maybe not. Okay, I did bring a bag of ribbons with me because these are all the colors that I want to work with today. So, because it's a very pale, oh, I might use some of that. I brought some fiber, some wools, some of this eyelash trim. I've got this little picot edge ribbon, and it's, look at that, it's perfect length. So I'm going to hook that through the top at the halfway point. And this now becomes my hanger. So I'm just going to tie a knot up the top here. And cut off those ends. I could also use a piece of the fibers, but it was just perfect size and width to go on here. I could have used this one too. I have another fiber here. And I've got some pink lace here in my bag of tricks and some pink ribbon. Okay, so that's enough to play with. Oh, maybe this cord here too. Got that cord. Okay, now I'm going to get this out of the way. So you see how much I used. That's it. One little piece. But I do have this pink satin in a longer piece. And because I want to tie it in, I don't even know where my bead went. Oh, here it is. Because I want to tie it in with the tassel itself, I'm just going to pick one side here and I'm going to cut two pieces. It's about, yeah, this is about 20 inches, but I don't know that I need that much, probably about 15 inches. So I'm just going to cut a couple of thin strips of my fabric. Yeah, so this is about 14 inches long, this piece. So I'm going to cut a second one. And no measuring, it's about 1/4 of an inch wide. And I don't worry about it being, you know, not perfectly straight. No one is going to notice except for you guys watching. And then I kind of just pull it and rough it up a little bit so it's not so freshly cut looking. And you see how it's become more frayed? So 2 pieces. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm just going to rough it up a little bit. Oop, I broke it in half. Roughed it up too much. Got to cut one more piece. I think that was the first one. There might have been a cut in the fabric when I cut it. And, you know, I always say, if at first you cut one and it doesn't work, just say, oops, and do it again. Okay, that's good. So now I have these two ribbons. I'm going to pick some different ribbons that I have here. I've got this yarn wrapped on a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to cut one here and one for this one. And then put this one aside. Lost my elastic. And then I've got some of this pink lace. One for this one. So I use a combination of ribbon, lace, trim, fibers, yarn, whatever I have. I don't need a lot of anything in particular, so I'm using now this other pink yarn. And so we're up to about 5 things here. I'm going to use a little bit of this eyelash trim. I sell this in my shop too. And I'm going to be making some mega mixes where you get about 100 yards of this stuff. Coming very soon in assorted colors. So I've cut one for each of that. And then the same thing with, this is kind of a silvery, glittery yarn. It's almost like an eyelash because it's got lots of these little fibery ends to it. But it just gives you a little bit of glitz. Oh yeah, I've taken out this shabby ribbons here. It's a satin ribbon that, it's not really shabby. It just sat in my well, I'll save that knot for after. It just sat in my bag so long that it got shabby. So I'm going to add one of each of those to here. This is a great way to use up those ribbon rolls that you get. You see them so much in the thrift shops now, and people bypass them because they don't know what to do with them. And this is perfect for making tassels. Okay, so I just gathered up a bunch of these. Nothing much to it, right? So I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's about 14, but it depends on how heavy of a tassel you want to have. And the reason I do it in 2 piles is this way I know that my assortment is nicely mixed. So I'm going to put the 2 piles together now. And when I fold it in half, it gives you a really fun mix of colors for your tassel. Now you can weave it through the bottom loop here, but it is intense. It's hard to do. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a cord, and you can use any of your fibers you have. I'm just going to stick the cord through the halfway point like so, and cut off a piece. And you know, it could be a piece of crochet cotton. It could be one of these fibers, just another piece of it. And I'm just going to tie it into a knot to knot up the center of my tassel. It could be a piece of wire. And then I always like to have to make the head of the tassel using the same kind of cord. But this time I'm going to make it longer so that it blends in with the tassel after I've knotted it. So I'm going to make it twice the length. And then I'm going to wrap it around to make sort of the head of the tassel. And you can wrap it around a couple of times if you like. And tie it nice and tight in a knot, double knot. And so those two ends will now blend in with your tassel. Now I'm a little bit wonky here, but I will iron that out a little bit. And I'm sure once it's hanging up on the wall for a few days, it will start to straighten out. But it's kind of fun too to have it a little bit wrinkled up. So I'm just doing this just to make it sit a little bit nicer. So now I've got these two ends for tying it on. And wherever my little piece went here, so I've got the hanger in the top, and I'm just going to feed this through the loop in the bottom and tie a knot in it. And maybe a third knot, because I don't want the tassel to fall off. And what I like to do is where the knot is, where I'm tying it onto the tile or to the wire, I just like to put a little dot of glue there. And you can do this with your white glue as well. And then I just tie the final knot. And this way I know that it's glued in there. It's not going to come apart. And then these two ends, you can either cut them or add some beads onto there for further embellishment. And there is the start of my tassel. Now I've got these little wire loopy things. I can add some beads on here to make a dangle. And I did bring some beads with me. And yes, another thing I do when I'm bored is I sit and make tassels. And we will do some tassels again. We did some a while ago, but some of you may have not noticed where that video is. So I'm just going to pick up a couple of pink and gold ones. I've got a nice pearl one here on a chain. And that's pink and silver. Might not have very many pink and gold ones. Have to make some more. Okay, I'm just going to pick another pearl one that's on a chain if I can find one. Yes, I've got another one on a chain. Now these already have a loop on them, and I can add a jump ring, but I don't have any handy right now. So I'm just going to open this loop on here. And hook it through the little loop we made with the little curlicue thing. You can add charms. I've got these two threads here. So I'm going to take one of these chains and weave it onto a thread. And then tie a knot in that. Oop. And put a little dot of glue, just because I like to know that these are on here secure. And then cut my thread short. So I've got one dangling from this little curly thing we made. I've got one dangling from the thread that I tied the tassel with. And I can keep going and adding charms and beads and just single beads and all kinds of goodies on here. But I'm not going to waste your time doing it online. I can show you this up in a follow-up. So yeah, it's just a matter of adding all kinds of things. And then I've got these two loops at the top that I can also add charms and dangles hanging from there. Or I can just leave them as looking as decorative pieces. Or I can take them and weave them back into the bead itself on the front and on the back if I want to just add additional embellishment and decoration into the charm itself or into the beaded tile itself. So there's so many different ways that you can play with these things and add more stuff to them and have things dangling from all over the place. Like, it's just so cute and easy to add the stuff on. So that's what I do with bamboo tiles. And so, yes, if you want to go and get some, this might be something you want to put on your list of things to look for on your thrifting hauls or on your thrifting adventures. Now, just because you're on camera here with me, I'm not going to be able to feed this on. Okay, maybe I need to cut it straight. It's got a little bit of a frayed edge to there. So I'm just going to add this on. Here we go. And I stagger the knots too so that they show up differently on the piece. A little bit of glue there. I just cut my fingernail, so I can't do anything. There we go. And then cut my thread short. So now I've got these dangles hanging from here, and I can continue to play around with them and add more stuff to it yet so that it sits nicely. So this one has the knot at the top. And these ones I tied right onto the loop at the bottom. So I'm going to show you that really quickly. This I'm going to again make with, it looks like a bobby pin, but a longer bobby pin. There's an ambulance going by. That's very strange for us. We don't have that sound very often. I hope things are okay. It's been, we had some ice rain yesterday. And so I think the roads are still kind of slushy, icy. So weaving my wire through the tile. Got both ends. And pulling them down and then doing the same thing going the other direction. Get those feet out of the way, or I call them legs and feet when I call them feet when they're all curled up. And I call them legs when they're just nothing's done to them yet. Now, like I said, if you don't have wire, you can do the paper clip method. And sometimes it's a little harder to pull these through. Okay. So that's what it looks like with the wire just pulled through on either side. And then you start curling them up. And if you make them really long, you can get a really nice big coil that you can add, like I said, as a more of a decorative piece on the front and back of your tile when it's done, when it's all decorated. And then doing this one. Almost looks like the top of a butterfly, doesn't it? Like the antennae from a butterfly. A little bit fancier. And then doing the second set. Now I've made these ones a little longer to show you a different method here. Unfortunately, you have to watch me do this. I can't just produce it done. My videos are always done raw, you know that, and you just have to bear with me or fast forward, but you might miss something. You know, there's no guarantee. I might tell you something wonderful and amazing. I will tell you a fast story, though. I was watching Julie Crandall, I think it's Julie Crandall, Jules Designs. She was showing a paper clip that she was making. Well, she was showing how to decorate some paper clips to make dangles. And her dog barked in the video, and then my dog started barking. And he was quite concerned because where was this dog coming from? And it was like I had a dog in this room. Okay, so there's my curlicues, or my feet on either side, and then my two my two loops to hang from. And I made these not as tight as the last one so that I could pull the paper clip. It's not a paper clip. I could pull the loop out a little further on the one side, and then you know, these are the feet from that side. So these ones I made a little bit tighter. But I pulled it out so that I have a longer loop here, so it's not as tightly curled up here to make it short. Does that make sense? And so on this one, now I haven't decorated it, but on this one I could take my threads, and I don't know that I can do as many. Oh, I don't like that when you hear more than one ambulance go by, or a fire truck. I don't know what's going by. And so I'm going to do that one quick. And some lace. And some ribbon. And some of this cord. Now I'm just going to see how much we have here. Okay, so that was about half. That's probably more than enough. Now it's a little harder to do, and so I always recommend that you have and I have one here somewhere, I think. No, I don't. I always just take a paper clip and open it up. So I'm using it like a bobby pin. If you had a bobby pin would work just fine. And then finding the halfway point in your tassel fibers, I just loop it around the paper clip. And then I use this to go through the loop and then I find the center again. Maybe I have to go a little bit further here. There we go. So I find the center, take the paper clip off. So I've just used it like a needle sort of. And then I bring my tassel ends through that loop and pull it tighter. And just before it's at the tightest it's going to be, I put a little bit of glue in there inside. and then I continue to pull it, and the glue will catch the fibers, and then they won't fall off. So that's the method where you have your fibers hanging right from the hook. But now it's pulled the hook quite a bit down away from the tile. Like there's quite a bit of space here. So I could have added more. It's just harder to weave it through. So what I would do is I would just take those feet at the other end and then just twist them a little bit more so that it sits a little bit tighter. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. So that this way the loop is a little bit tighter at the bottom and not going anywhere, and you have your tassel. So now, since I did it backwards, I'm going to now quickly glue this together. Since you're seeing it all, you might as well see it all, right? And then putting a little bit of glue, wrapping my fabric around. And slowly wrapping it up or down the tile, however which way you did them. I got to get those feet out of the way a little bit just to get to the top of the tile. A little bit of glue to catch it. And then I'm going to slowly cascade back down. And you can put all kinds of fun things to wrap around on your tile. Just like when you do a bamboo or a boho style of boho beads. So I've just got some basic satin on here now. And I have my lace. And do I have more of that tulle? Oh, I have some of the sparkly tulle. That'll work. Putting a little bit of glue to hold my tulle on. And just wrapping around. And then a little piece of lace to go across the top and on the back as well. So I cut 2 pieces and just running a little bit of glue down the top. It's much easier to do if you do the bead first and then make your tassel. But I just wanted to show you the tassel again. And then I figured I might as well finish it online since I've got you here. And then a hanger for the top. In this case, I've got this other ribbon here, so I'm just going to use that instead. I think I have to cut it into a point. And tying a knot in the hanger. And then the next thing would be to put some type of an embellishment on it on the front. Just finger combing this out a little bit. So that just shows you some different methods of decorating with these bamboo tiles. And you've seen my other one here. So this was the same thing. It was woven right onto the wire loop. This is made a separate tassel with the head on it. And same with this one. Now this one's quite a chunky monkey here because I've wrapped and wrapped and wrapped. And then I used a lot more fibers on it. But that's just some fun tassels to put on your journals. I do have a journal right here. So I could easily hang this and hook it right onto the cords of the journal. Or I could use a bulb pin. I don't have to use a ribbon at the top. I can just add a bulb pin to the top and let that hang down. But just a fun way to decorate. And these are fun to decorate in your windows, you know, on, you know, a door handle, all kinds of things like that you can add them to. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're going to be on the lookout for these tiles. Remember, they're well worth it. You get 130 at least on one mat. And if you find the larger ones, well, then you get even more. So $2, $3, $4, even $5 is still worth it to get this many beads out of one. If you can't find them and you're really desperate for them, I will be selling them in packages of 20 for $1. So it's, like I said, it's not for me to make a huge amount of money. It's just to recoup my costs. But you know, you do have to buy other things with it, of course, because otherwise it's not worth it for you to buy just one of these, unless you want to buy 500. So there's some ideas for you and more fun things to make. So that's it. That's all for my Thrifty Canucks video. You can find all the other participants below in the list if you want to go see who else had different hauls. But I just thought I would share this with you today and just have a little bit of fun and a play. Have yourself a very creative day, and weekend is coming upon us. Tomorrow is my Friday follow-up, but it may show up on Saturday because I'm a little bit behind. I got to play catch-up yet. The mailers are going out in the mail tomorrow of all of the hashtag Happy Mail movement. Pretty exciting. And I will be checking the mailbox tomorrow to see if there's more for next week. That's it. That's all for today. Bye for now.